As of the making of this video, Pokémon is still in the middle of its 8th generation. Pokémon Sword and Shield are front and center, we've got Sinnoh remakes on the way, Legends Arceus is looking amazing, we're having a good time, but Pokémon fans are always looking ahead, and people have been murmuring about Gen 9 for a while now. We'll have to wait and see what happens, but technically speaking, if Gen 8 follows the 3-year time frame that basically every other generation has followed, that would mean that Gen 9 is going to debut next year in 2022. That might change, however, since Legends Arceus is also releasing in 2022, but the point is, Gen 9 is probably not as far away as it may seem, and in fact, Game Freak may have already revealed where Gen 9's region is going to be. Now, before I get into this, I am going to let you know that this is one of those things where I take a small detail and blow it all out of proportion, except I'm going to be blowing it out of proportion with facts and logic, thank you very much. No, but seriously, this is very speculative, so take it with a huge grain of salt, but it does serve as something very interesting to think about at the very least, and does have some evidence to back it up. So if we flash back all the way to 2019, shortly before the release of Sword and Shield, I was reading Game Informer's interviews with Game Freak that they did for the promotion of Sword and Shield, and I remember reading something that might have just been a hint to the region of Generation 9. The problem was, this didn't occur to me until much longer after the fact, and since then, I have been trying to find where exactly I read that quote to literally zero avail. Fast forward to today, I just found it again by complete happenstance in July of 2021, over a year and a half later. So this video is literally almost 2 years in the making. It's actually a pretty momentous occasion. I'm gonna have to try not to cry throughout the rest of this. Anyway, the quote in particular concerns a question that Game Informer asks Junichi Masuda. They say, quote, "We spoke in Tokyo about how the Galar region was inspired by the media tour you did for Sun and Moon, which took you to the UK. Where are you doing media tours for Sword and Shield?" This is a very, very relevant question because Game Freak actually has a trend of basing the latest Pokémon region off of places they had just visited to promote their game that is about to come out. As Game Informer's question states, they did it when they went to the UK to promote Sun and Moon, and then made the UK into a Pokemon region in the next generation, and they have also been on record doing it with Pokemon Black and White as well, where the inspiration for the Unova region, being the New York metropolitan area, came from a trip to New York that Junichi Masuda had taken to promote Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. So we have a legitimate track record of activity here, which is why it's worth paying attention to Masuda's answer to this question. And when Masuda does answer this question in the interview, he says Redwood. Now, before we get into where Redwood is exactly, I want to reiterate that this is all very speculative. When Masuda says Redwood, he obviously knows what the interviewer is getting at with regards to his question, so it's noted in the interview that he responds with a laugh, as if he's giving a joking type answer. Frankly, I don't even know if Game Freak actually went to a Redwood or not to promote Sword and Shield, or if Masuda is literally just trolling here. Like I said, dose yourself up with a big grain of salt. But I will say this, if there is one thing that Game Freak is known for doing, and Masuda in particular, it's hinting at their next games ahead of time. Heck, Masuda hinted at Sword and Shield before it was even announced in a tweet that seemed like a lighthearted, joking tweet at the time, before anyone even knew what was going on with regards to Sword and Shield, and it only became apparent that it was a hint later on after the game had been announced. So with all that said, it might be worth looking into where this Redwood is, if for nothing else, just the sake of intrigue. Now, as a quick Google search will tell you, there are multiple places in the world that have the name Redwood, but by far the most significant is Redwood City, California. Contrary to its name, Redwood City isn't actually near where the famous redwoods of Northern California are. It's actually more in the middle of the state next to San Francisco. Now, this is very interesting because of all the places in the world where the next Pokemon region could be, I think anyone would agree that the west coast of the US is one of the most likely candidates. There are other strong candidates, like Australia for instance, but with the US being one of the more significant places in the world, and California in particular being super significant, and the fact that for what it's worth, the US is a big market in terms of gaming, it makes all the sense in the world for another US region to be introduced someday, especially considering that the entire mainland of the US outside of New York has been untouched to this point by the Pokemon world, and that covers a ton of ground, and truthfully, even outside of this conversation, I think it's genuinely only a matter of time before we get another US region. If Japan, with as small as it is, can have 4, I think the US could get a 3rd one, especially considering its most significant and noteworthy area outside of New York is California. So moving along with this idea, if we were to take a look at this idea of California and possibly the rest of the west coast of the US being a Pokemon region, you would find that it is literally the perfect candidate to become one. It's got the big city areas with Los Angeles, San Francisco, and San Diego, just to name a few. It's got the whole Hollywood thing going for it. It's got beautiful landscapes and a wide variety of them at that, and it's got the redwoods. You cannot tell me that redwoods aren't just dying to inspire some amazing new forest location in a Pokemon game. In fact, the extremely beautiful areas of the Pacific Northwest are also a no-brainer to be featured in a Pokemon game someday, and there's even another town in Oregon named Redwood for what it's worth. So I mean, just from a viability standpoint, the US West Coast, with California as a base, is an absolute no-brainer candidate to be a Pokemon region. Not only does it have all the locales, but the flora and fauna there could inspire some incredible Pokemon. So whether or not it could be a region isn't a discussion. The discussion is whether or not it will be. As I said, you gotta take this with some skepticism because it is all based on one little detail from an interview that could mean nothing, but I mean, it is worth keeping an eye on. I already made a video a while ago where I cited the west coast of the US as, in my opinion, one of the most likely places to become the next Pokemon region, and while I'm not about to call myself an expert or anything, this whole harebrained idea being consistent with that only makes me want to keep an even closer eye on this to see how it ends up. So in a year or two, when Gen 9 is revealed, I want you guys to all remember this video and come back and leave a comment saying that I was right and I totally called it, or to laugh in my face and say I was wrong. Either one works. But what do you think about the idea of a California US West Coast region in general? Do you think this whole prediction involving this interview is worth keeping an eye on? Let me know in the comments below and leave a like if you enjoyed. You can also support the channel greatly by checking out my Pokemon remixes on Spotify as well as other music streaming platforms, including the brand new album that I just dropped. It seriously helps to support the channel a ton and I would really appreciate it, and thank you all for your support in advance. With that said, I will see you all soon with another video, and until then, as always, I love you guys, thanks for watching, and I will smell you guys later.